Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Friday afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. This is the show in which I celebrate artists and their body of worth. And I am so excited about today because I get to celebrate Sallie Mays. But Sallie Mays is worth celebrating every day. I mean, we're going to cover her career from Texas to New York and beyond. But before I bring her on, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite performances of Sallie's. This is from the Bistro Awards. I think this was the last Bistro Awards. We'll talk about that. But Sallie Mays is a winner of 2 Bistro Awards and 12 MAC nominations. How's that for Cabaret Month? And it's also Women's History Month. So she is the perfect person to be here today. Today, I celebrate Sallie Mays.
You know, I was thinking about this. I know we're not supposed to talk, but I just want to say this real quick. You know, sometimes in your career, you get really lucky and you get to walk alongside genius for a while. And that's the experience that Lynn and I had working on Closer Than Ever. And so I just feel so fortunate that this song has followed me around all these years. Okay. Sign says I'm Miss Byrd, that's my name. I'm one of those people who all look the same. At work I'm hardly seen, I come and go, but I know something that people don't know. Everyone who sees me thinks that I'm that dull Miss Byrd. I could blow that myth apart, but I don't say a word. I sit here at my desk and no one knows. Not 20 minutes ago I was not wearing clothes. I was in someone's arms, in someone's bed. Oh, what the thought of it does to my head. If it's true, a bird makes music when a heart takes wing. This bird is singing. Miss Byrd is singing. I'm singing I'm in love. But I'm not saying a thing. Down in apartment A, the super's aptly named. Last week I went to the basement, more hours than I claimed. He says I'm super too. He calls me hot. I show those basement apartments a lot. Back at work, I'm crisp and fresh, reliable Miss Byrd. Seals are dancing in my flesh, but I don't say a word. I'm showing Penthouse C as I begin. I still feel his hand sliding over my skin. My nipples start to throb inside my bra. That's when I start to go la-da-dee-da. If you've ever felt the lift a little lunch can bring, this bird is singing. Miss Byrd is singing. I'm singing up on fire, but I'm not saying a thing. No. This This is a 4 through 5. I call it more a 6. The broken kitchenette tiles they will fix. Lots of girls who first seem shy have secrets I have found. If you think I'm special, I suggest you look around. That little office temp who seems so dumb, how come a trip to McDonald's is making her hum? And Mrs. Smith in sales, who's turning gray? Why is she smiling that curious way? If it's true, the drabest songbirds come alive in spring. The birds are singing. Miss Bird is singing. I'm singing. I'm in love. But I'm not saying a thing. No, 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 no. Mum's the word. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard, woo! Shigadoo, shigadoo, shigadoo,
Miss Byrd, don't ever stop singing. Oh my God. Sally, I love you so much.
Oh, honey, thank you.
And it is
I love you too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to begin today. Unfortunately, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. You may want to turn your sound down just a little bit because we are getting a little bit of an echo.
All right, hang on a second.
It's okay.
Yeah.
There you are.
Is that better?
It's still coming in. There's just a little bit of an echo.
Better?
But I think we'll deal with it. We'll be fine.
Better?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So we are still in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes.
Today is 372 days since the theater has been dark.
Yes.
And I want to ask, how are you doing really in the midst of everything?
I think like everybody, I have good days and I have bad days. And, certain things really trigger me and I'll go off into a depression. But for the most part, I have to say, we are okay. We have money and food on the table and none of us are sick. And I've had my first shot and, a lot of people are so much worse off than we are. And I'm so lucky because I live with two people I absolutely adore, my husband and my son, who is living with us through this pandemic. And we all like each other and we all have fun together. And so, it's not as bad as it could be. I have close friends close by. So we have our own little pod, I have work occasionally. I mean, I'm not very good with all this technological stuff. So I hate it.
But we're learning.
Set up here now. Does it look okay? And
everything is perfect. You look perfect. The background is great. You're doing right.
I'm trying to do it right, and I'm trying to learn how to be a little bit less technologically challenged, but it's not fun for me yet. And I want it to be just, hit a button and go. And so, because I'm impatient that way. So, but yeah, I mean,
it does give us a moment to say thank you to all the sound and tech guys and gals out there who make all of us sound and look good on a stage. So
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, the last performance that you did just before the pandemic was at Feinstein's 54 Below with our mutual friend, George Dvorsky. You brought PETE N KEELY back, and that was the last performance that you did, am I correct? When everything shut down.
Yeah, I actually got on a plane to fly down to Houston to work at Theater Under the Stars with Levi Strauss Levi, oh my God, what's his last name? Oh my God, he's wonderful. Tony, $1 Million Quartet. He was doing Pure Country with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I flew down to do that. And I got there and went to the grocery store, unpacked all my bags, went to the grocery store, spent $250. And as I was walking out of the store, they called me and said, well, they've shut down downtown, and so we're not doing it. And so I didn't get to work on it. And it was Christ. That's his name, Levi Christ. Yeah. Anyway, I was so disappointed. I went and spent a couple of days with my brother before I came home. And, you know, that week before was kind of like really charged because I not only had that thing at 54 Below, but I had the Bistro Awards the same night after. So all I think of when I look at that video is how exhausted my voice was. But
perfect.
But like I had gone on Saturday, the Saturday before that, Monday, and done a concert in Connecticut with Alex Ryback. And it was my first like solo concert with him because, you know, Tex Arnold was my guy. And and so Alex had played for me for a show that I did with Jeff Harner called Double Take, but he had not been, you know, my musical director yet. And so it was our first time working together. And so we worked really, really hard and we rehearsed a lot. And so, you know, I had spent that whole, and then we'd had rehearsals for the thing at 54 Below. And so I was like beyond tired. And so I was ready to get on a plane and go down and kind of get in my beautiful hotel room and just rest. And so it was very disappointing because I was excited to work on that piece. So it's just such a weird time. It's just so,
it is, yes.
And nobody quite knows what to do with themselves. So.
Well, I want to ask you, I know that the other night I interviewed George Dvorsky because the two of you are coming back to do PETE N KEELY. It's already been filmed. Yes. And it's going to start streaming next month through the Paper Mill Playhouse subscription series. So everyone rush after this show and get your tickets for the entire season because it's all good work. I know that you've done that, but other than that project, how have you been able to keep your creativity flowing during this time?
Well, you know, in the last 10 years or so, I have been writing a play for myself. It's a one-woman play with music. And I got a production of it done down in Texas it's been 2 years now, or maybe 3 years. But we were supposed to go last fall and do a full production, like a 7-week production of it. We just did a workshop of it at my alma mater, University of Houston, and just to see what we had. And so we were supposed to go work at Stages down in Texas, and everything shut down. And so I have been, you know, talking to producers, and I have been tweaking, and because I think I need to cut about 15 minutes off of it still. And you know, one of the producers said, Sally, you don't need to cut big chunks, just cut a word here and a word there. And that's so much harder than you think it would be. And so I'm trying to do that. I've also just been like songwriting has just been pouring out of me. And, you know, I don't play anything. And so I am at the mercy of musicians who want to like do what I tell them to. I know what I want it to sound like, but I know what I want it to sound like, but
Does anyone ever say no to Sally Mays?
No, Tex used to try, but I beat it. No. They're wonderful. Alex Ryback and Tex Arnold and my friend Ethan Fine wrote the songs from my show, which is called Contradiction of the Southern Soul. And they wrote them with me, and they were beautiful collaborators. And, you know, it was like I had this fever upon me. I had this really clear idea of what I wanted it to be and what I wanted it to sound like. And so they went with that. They were lovely about it. And so I've been writing a lot of lyrics, I guess you would say. And so I've just got this whole book, and I'm ready to go. We can never get together again. So, you know, with people. And so that's kept me going. I've done I taught some classes. I put together a couple of videos. I did a thing with Scott Evan Davis in one of his songs, and we did a video of that, and it was beautiful. And we had such a good time working on it. But once again, it's the technological stuff that, that gets me. And I put together a video of this song that I found in a closet that I had recorded. Actually, I'd recorded it for Tova Feldsha for her opening night of Golda's Balcony. And it was a song called You're Aging Well by Dar Williams. And Rick Benson and I did this arrangement, and I went into his little studio and we recorded it, and we gave it to her with the sheet music, with the arrangement, right? And I hadn't heard it since I did it. And I found a CD one day and I just put it in and I was listening to it. And I went, that's actually a pretty good demo. And so I took that, and I took all the women in my life, all the pictures of all the years of all the women from my family and from people I've worked with and people I've been close friends with, and just put together this thing. And that took, a little while to do. And so I've just been trying to find ways to express creativity. My husband and I have this room is actually my she shed craft room. Your she shed craft room. I do all kinds of crafting things, and I got this room looking like I wanted it to. And so, we've been working on our house. Yeah, you just do what you can do creatively, Well,
right after everything stopped, were you able to just start forging through this, or did you stop as well? Because all of us have gone through this pause. Some people really rolled up their sleeves and got to work. Some people sat, immersed in frozen, not knowing, which way to go. Where did you stand on everything?
I paused a little bit, but I'm one to stay busy, and I always have projects that I like to be working on when I'm not working, because I need that. The hardest part about this for me has been, I go to the gym and get on the treadmill, and then I'll do my little weight round of weights that I do. And I usually do that not every day, but maybe every other day, and I basically gave up my gym membership because I'm not doing that now. And so I walk around my lake. I live on this pretty lake up here in Westchester, and I walk around that when it's not freezing. But not having that physical activity is the hardest thing for me, because that's my Xanax, my Prozac. That's what I use to fight off demons and depression and all that stuff. And so with COVID, you have a lot of that. And I got sick in April.
Oh.
I was so fortunate. It was never a hospital stay. It was never so bad, and I had.
You know how you got it?
Yeah, I couldn't get a test, so I'm pretty sure I got it. But I mean, I had the chills and the leg muscle aches and a fever, and then towards the end of it, I got vertigo so badly I couldn't even stand up. And so it made me so sick that it took me about a month to get well, and before I could walk again, And thank God my friend Phil Jeffrey Bond lives up here, and he has a pool, and I would go get in his pool and swim, and I kind of got my health going again, and so it just took a little while. I mean, and I'm one of the fortunate ones. I really am fine, and it wasn't a hospital stay, so I'm so lucky. But we had to stop for a while,
Now, you're originally from Livingston, Texas, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But I want to ask, before we start talking about you, do you still have family in Texas? And were any of them really affected by the recent deep freeze that Texas went through?
I do have family. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and their families all live down there. My mom and dad are no longer with us.
Sorry.
I have cousins, and, I guess all my aunts and uncles are pretty much gone, but I have a lot of cousins. And so, as far as I know, everybody is fine. I mean, there were no pipes busted, or, my brother was worried about the pipes under his pool, and that turned out fine. And I think that the most that happened was they went without power for a couple of days and without heat for a couple of days. The fireplace is very handy for that, and lots of blankets, and, they all survived it fine. And so thank you, powers to be,
Well, I want to go back. I like to go back to the 5-year-old self. At the time, that time before the layers of life start getting piled upon you. And you shared that with me. I just absolutely love this picture. You are appearing with George Jones. For those of you who may remember, he used to sing with Tammy Wynette. And I'll show another picture here. There you are. Tell me about this little girl.
Well, my dad was a jazz musician living in East Texas. And, you know, he had 4 children, so he ended up not being a professional musician anymore. But he was brilliant, and he discovered, you know, about the time I could phonate at all, that I could carry a tune. And so he started teaching me from the time I could stand. And he'd sit and play his guitar, and he would teach me how to sing. And so I was, and I had like this like insane voice when I was a little bitty girl. I never sounded like a kid. I always sounded like an adult. And it was this huge belt voice, right? And so he didn't know what to do. So he just kept teaching me stuff. And so, and his repertoire was things like Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and Ella Fitzgerald and Edie Gourmet. And so I learned how to sing like that. I learned all that stuff. And he taught me to sing with straight tones, not with a vibrato. I didn't get a vibrato till later. And for a long, long time, I belted everything because I could. You know? So, you know, later I figured out what a mix is, and, you know, never really had any voice to speak of. I went to Joan later for a little bit because I had a wobble, but I've never really had any voice. And so I just, you know, it was fun, and it was, people started to find out that I could do that. And so I would get offered gigs. And, you know, like they'd come over and say, I'll give you $50 if you'll open for, you know, George Jones this weekend. And I'd say, I'm 75. And they would hire me. And so I was the little Texas tornado, you know, and so that ad, you know, I talk about this, actually. I do a whole thing about it in my show, actually, because it was such an important thing. And, you know, I loved it and I wanted to do it, but the thing that I think about now is how much pressure there was to always look a certain way and sound a certain way and be ready.
Well, I want to ask you, you know, I've had the pleasure in the last couple of weeks to interview 2 child stars, Stanley Livingston from My 3 Sons, and also Sparky Marks, who was a big star on television in the 70s, Sparky Marcus, big star in the 70s. And I want to ask you the same question that I asked them. When did it start feeling like work for you as a child, as opposed to being play and fun?
Well, I mean, it was most fun when I was standing next to my dad and he was teaching me stuff. And I loved being on stage, and I loved how they'd make a big thing over me, right? Because I was cute and I could sing. And so I liked that. But I remember also, like, we would go to these things, and like there was this place down the road called Johnny Morrison's Hay Barn. And it was this great big hay barn out in the middle of nowhere, and everybody would come and sit in like folding chairs and watched. And it was pine, everything was pine, and which I'm really allergic to now, oddly enough. But, you know, and they had they had like outhouses out back, and they served sassafras tea and beer, and there was sawdust on the floors. And I just remember it so vividly because I would go and do an evening there, and it would be like midnight, and I would not have sung yet. And I remember, and all the seats were made out of pine. They were just, you know, benches and stuff backstage. And I would remember like climbing onto one of those benches and lying and putting my head in my mom's lap, and I had to be careful because I couldn't mess up my hair because you saw and waiting to sing. And I remember that being exhausting. And I also remember from the time that I was little bitty having anxiety dreams, like real, you know, where you walk on stage and you don't know what you're singing, or you're not wearing clothes, or, you know, all kinds of things like that. So I started having anxiety dreams really early. And, you know, my parents were wonderful, and they did what they could do for me, and they knew I wanted it, and so they did it. But it was a lot of pressure. You know, my son Ben has this mask, he has the talent, and he never wants to do it ever. And so I don't push it because you know, a lot of parents kind of give that little nudge. I don't push them at all, because I remember, even though I was the one that wanted to do it, I still remember those little nudges, and it kind of makes
Sally, what was it? I mean, obviously you had the talent. You're doing this as a child, and some kids do it and leave the business. What was it that kept you going? What was it that you wanted? What was it that you were going after?
I wanted to be an actor. I discovered, because actually I did take a break from it. I took a break. I was Little Sally Mae's, and then I took a break during the teenage years. And then I started it up again, and I found out that I could study theater. And so I was supposed to go to University of Texas. I'd been given a scholarship. I was ready to go because I'd done a summer thing there and they liked me. And so I was getting ready to do that. And my dad had this accident that was this huge disaster down in Texas. He was in an ammonia truck, fell off the 610 loop. And
oh my God, wow.
And so he had this, and my baby brother was also in the wreck. And so it changed our lives, and we didn't have money and we didn't have means. And my mom was trying to take care of my dad and teach school. And it was really, a lot of it fell on me. And like taking care of the kids and cooking dinner and stuff like that. And so we didn't have the money for me to go to University of Texas. And I said, well, fuck it. I'm just not going. Oops, can I say that?
No, that's okay. You said it. It's okay.
I'm not going to college. And so my mom, my sweet little mom, went and got like forms from the University of Houston, which also had a drama department, and filled them out and got me in. And so I was like, okay. And so I went to the University of Houston, and oh my goodness, it changed my life, because I have never forgotten the teachers that I had there, and I have lifelong friends from there. I met Billy Stritch there.
That's great.
I mean, it was the most wonderful education.
And I know that you started performing in Houston, but did that come as a result of you being in school in Houston, or were you getting those gigs prior to going to the University of Houston?
Well, it wasn't because I was in college, but I did need to make money. And I'm so bad at anything else. I really am. I'm such a terrible secretary. I'm a horrible waitress. I drop trays. I'm just awful. And so I thought, well, I can sing. And so I went and like got a job. I mean, I would sing with like those wedding bands, you know, that did weddings and events and private parties and stuff. And I got a gig doing that. And then I started doing like gigs in these little clubs. I had a jazz club. It was a Mexican food restaurant and jazz club called Las Brisas down in Houston. And I got a gig there. And I got a gig at some of these gay bars where you could do like your cabaret act. And then like about 2 or 3 years into college, I met Billy Stritch and Sharon Montgomery, and we discovered that we had a blend and that we could sing together, and we'd go to parties and, oh, y'all sing. And so, you know, Billy would play and we would sing. I think it was Lullaby Broadway, and I can't remember what the other one was, but we had 2 or 3 songs that we had the harmony down and everything. And so one night, Nat Adderley and Janet Adderley and Nat Adderley Jr. were in town doing a gig at this little club called Rascals, and they said, come sit in. And so we all went and we sat in, and when we came off the stage, the manager said, do you want to do a gig here? And we all looked at each other, and he said, you have 3 weeks. And Billy said, okay. Together, and we stole from everybody and did, like, you know, we did Manhattan Transfer and the Ames Brothers. I mean, it was everything. And so, Mills Brothers, and it was so much fun. And so, you know, then I became a really big part of the cabaret scene there. And so, you know, it's like, I don't know, I just always kind of go from thing to thing. People always want me. So,
and how far is Livingston from Houston?
About 75 miles.
Okay. So your mom, I mean, you were close enough that you were able to go back home from time to time, see your family. But then you made the decision after graduating, I think, to come to New York.
No, not what happened.
So bring us up to date. What happened?
I had a rock and roll band. I left Montgomery Mason Stritch, and I had a rock and roll band. And so I moved to Dallas to do that. And I was engaged to the piano player. And that didn't work out. And so I stayed in Dallas for a few years, just like kind of stuck, not knowing what to do. And in cabarets and did a lot of jingles. That's when I became a jingle singer. And see, I've had all these careers. Mm-hmm. And I was the Shine Free Maybelline girl, the Dewey Stevens girl. I mean, I had a lot of fun. But eventually I spoke with this man named Irv Rabel. And I had met him when Billy and Sharon and I had come up to Newport to work one summer, and we came through New York and we went and sat in. I guess it was Don't Tell Mamas. No, maybe it was the Duplex. We sat in at the Duplex and people lost their minds. And so he was like, you've got to do a gig. And so I left the group right after that. And so when I called him, he goes, oh my God, I remember you. And he's like, why don't you come up and do a gig? Come up and do an act. And you can stay on my couch. And so I did. And that got me started. And then
who played for you for that gig?
Who
played for you for that gig?
Christopher Marlowe. And then I moved to New York, and I stayed on Irv's couch for about 6 months, actually. And he said, you're doing your act every Thursday night at this new club I've opened called 88's. And so I did. And for 5 people or, 20 or whatever. And Wes McAfee played piano for me.
Oh my God. Wow. You're bringing back memories. Yes.
And I just did my act there, and I kept trying to get agents, and I couldn't get an agent. I couldn't get anywhere with it. And one night this casting director came down and called Irv and said, I need a dumb blonde. And he said, I got a girl for you. And so he came down and watched my club act. His name was Don Pemrick. And then he called me and said, we are casting this Cy Coleman show called Welcome to the Club, and we're looking for a dumb blonde. And I said, well, I can do that. and then I didn't hear from him for a while. And he said, okay, we are going to go black with that role, and we need a swing for all the girls. So are you interested in that? And I said, sure. And so I went in, and I didn't know what I was doing. I sang Mr. Paganini, and Cy stood up in the middle of the audition, and he walked down to the stage, and he goes, you're good. And I said, well, thank you. And he said, it's nice to meet you. And I left, and I went home, and they called and said, they want you to do this. And I didn't have an agent. So I actually went through the phone book and started looking at agents, and I called some agents, and I got a guy named Robert Fry. He worked for Richard Astor and the Richard Astor agency. And I called him and I said, I met you at 88's one night, and I need an agent. And he goes, oh, well, he starts to backpedal. And I said, I have a Broadway show and I need someone to negotiate it for me. And he was like, oh, well, and so that's how I got my first.
Do you know how many agents live for those calls?
Well, it was 3 months in to when I
know.
And so it was like just this big lucky thing. And then I was in rehearsals for that, and it was a troubled preview period, and they were not happy with one of the girls in the show. And I mean, they ended up firing her, and they said, okay, but the day before they fired her, the director came over during a troubled preview. And, I'm green. I don't know what's going on, but I'm sitting with Salma Stretta, Joanna Glushak, and Walter Hudson, right? And we're all sitting there, who were the other swings. And the director, Peter Mark Shifter, walked over and said, we're going to do a rehearsal, an understudy rehearsal tomorrow. And I was like, and he was looking right at me, and I said, okay. And he goes, so bring all the songs and the scenes. And I said, okay. And so he left, and Salma Stretta sitting next to me looked over and he went, you be ready. And I went, what are you talking about? He goes, they don't have understudy rehearsals during a troubled preview period. Okay. And so I went in the next morning and thinking it was just going to be the stage manager, and I get there, and it's Cy and A.E. Hotchner and all the producers and the musical director. And everybody did their scenes and songs, but it was just so weird. And then I didn't know what was going to happen, but that night they fired the girl one of the girls I was swinging for, and they called me and said, you're on. And so Irv ran lines with me, and he got a ticket and came the first night. And I will never forget it because I was terrified. And it was a wonderful cast. It was Scott Wara and Scott Whitworth and Marcia Mitzman and Jody Benson. I mean, and Marilyn Sokol and Avery Schreiber were the stars. And so, I mean, they all had me, you know, and I had to learn to play fiddle in one day or fake playing fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on that night, and I'll never forget it because I had studied theater, and I'd done a bunch of shows in Houston at Theater of the Stars and Miller Outdoor Theater, and I did a lot of shows at U of H too. But I didn't know that I was funny.
Well,
I walked out on stage, and I said my first line, which was "Jailer, lock me up in leg irons and throw away the key," and they died laughing. And it was like this rollback from the back of the theater, and I thought, oh. And it was ding, like that light bulb moment. So,
well, I have a couple of questions about that evening. Obviously, you were ready when you
yes.
got the call to come in and do that. But was there anything in your training that prepared you for being a swing? Because for anyone who doesn't know, it is a difficult thing to do, especially when you're covering various roles.
Well, I will tell you that what was weird about it was because I had quit smoking and putting on a little weight. I was very Zoftig and blonde and busty, you know, and I was covering Marcia Mitzman and Jody Benson and Terry White and Sharon Scruggs. And so it was like, everybody was like, you know, different heights and different bodies. And it was like, and so I just was really trying to learn all of it. And, you know, we didn't even have really rehearsals because we were in rehearsals. You don't usually in a Broadway show, you don't start rehearsing understudies, right? Until after the show's over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had never even had a rehearsal or been on the stage. And so and then it was done and I was in the show. And so I didn't really have a long experience doing it. I did it years later. I had 2 surgeries back to back, and I wanted to get my toe in the water again. And I wanted to do Steel Magnolias on Broadway, and they said they had to get a television star. And so they got Delta Burke, and I said, well, can I cover for her? And so I ended up being a cover. And with her, because her health is very delicate, I ended up going on 2 or 3 times a week. And so it was a great job, you know, but it is kind of like you never are able to tell your friends, and you're never able to, you know. I also, they asked me if I would cover for Christine Ebersole too, and I said yes. And so Christine would come to me and go, I'm going to a wedding. I'll be gone for a week. You'd be doing this many performances. So I could prepare for that. But with Delta, I'd be in my dressing room, and she was right down the hall from me, and I'd hear thud, Sally, because she would faint, you know.
Oh my God.
7:30. And so I'd have to, you know, and so it was very hard. And I have immense respect for the people that do that, because I'm not good at it, and I don't think I would ever do it again. You watch these girls going from part to part to part, you know, and you'll see them on stage as one character, and the next night they'll be another. It just depends on who's on vacation or who's out sick, and they're amazing. And I have so much respect. It's really hard.
Well, I want to go back to that first time you stepped on stage and got that huge laugh in Welcome to the Club. Once you got that laugh, were you able to truly love that moment of that first night and be in the moment for that? Or were the nerves overwhelming with you?
Well, I mean, I was, like I said, I kind of got thrown into it, and I was thinking really hard the whole show. So I don't know if enjoyment is the right thing to say, but I remember that laugh hitting me, and like everything in me just relaxed, because I thought, oh, I've got this, because all of a sudden I knew I was funny. And so I just, you know, it was just really a wonderful evening. I remember it as being wonderful, and everybody was really like, you know, surprised. And so, you know,
And I want to ask you, and again, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked George the other night. I'm all about celebrating. I don't want any names or situations to come up in the question that I'm about to ask you. But was there ever a situation, career-wise for you, that was so difficult that you thought you'd never get through it? And then I would like to know what it was that did get you through it.
Yes. And I think my family got me through it, and I think my friends got me through it, and I think the audiences got me through it. I think that they made all of the nasty unpleasantness that was going on worth it, because I had a great part and I was able to go on and just do my part and go to my dressing room and then go home. And so it was really hard, and it made me ill, and I would never work with that director again. I would cross the street rather than speak to that director again. But I learned an awful lot from it. I do remember a lot of fun things about it too. I remember wonderful people that I got to be on stage with and wonderful scenes I got to play. And so, you know, it's like there's always a plus side to every situation, you know? So yeah, but I'm okay. I mean, we all have to kind of be prepared for that.
And there are so many areas to your career that we could go on forever and ever, but I do want to focus on two areas before we do run out of time today. We are going to talk about PETE and Keeley in a few moments. But I want to ask you, when did the television and film work begin to happen for you?
Oh gosh, you know, I guess after She Loves Me, it started happening. I mean, I remember Juliet Taylor came to see, who was Woody Allen's casting director, came to see the show, and then she called me in. And, you know, with Woody's movies, you don't get a script. You just get like some lines on a page. And she was talking about what you do. I've never seen anybody do that. You know, she was really very complimentary, and she was so nice. And she had me read the lines, and then Woody stuck his head in and just looked at me and didn't say anything, and then left. And I didn't get that job, but it let me know how weird that world is. I mean, you know, you really have to have a look. It's so much about how you look. It's so much about this right here. And I understand that after doing it, you know. And then I started booking, and it was all little teeny tiny things, but I started booking stuff for a while. And then I went on the road to do the national tour of Dirty Blonde. And when I came back, all those casting directors had changed over, and they kind of forgotten about me. And so that little run, and it wasn't much of a run, went. And like, you know, the biggest movie job I ever had, and you know, Gene Saks and Anne Reinking called me in for a meeting, not even an audition, just a meeting. And I sat down, and they said, we talked for a few moments, and then Gene said, "Well, how would you like to play Miss McAfee and we're going to do Bye Bye Birdie, and you know, and a film version of it." And I said, "Okay." And so there really wasn't an audition, you know. And so, because maybe if they'd see me on camera, they wouldn't. I don't know, you know. It's like it's just. It's so you just,
oh my God, you were so wonderful in that. And I'm going to share with everyone a small sampling of your television and film work, and then we'll see each other on the other side of this. That was all wonderful.
Hi, my name is Cindy Toll, and
What the hey, buddy? What happened to my turn?
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator. Did you want to weigh in on that question? Because, well, I'm thinking Coach Mancusi pretty much nailed that one.
Well, that's not how debates work, you pinhead.
Excuse me? Hello? I believe I have the floor.
No, you don't. I still have 2 minutes left.
There was a time when a Southern gentleman would never interrupt a lady.
I remember it well, Miss Toll. That's how I was raised.
It is such an honor to have you in our home, Mr. Birdie. Conrad, let me please show you up to your room. Harry will be up with your luggage shortly. Randolph, you take Miss Alvarez and Mr. Peters' bags up front. And...
oh, we have to do a little photo shoot or something right here. Ed would love this. Oh, my goodness. Albert, why are we doing this? I made reservations at the hotel.
Well, the hotel is miles away, Rose.
And you'd have to pay for the room, huh?
That's right. No, that has nothing to do with it. I just think that we should stay here and keep a close watch on Conrad.
Why keep a close watch? Yeah, we should stay here.
I'm sure you'd like to freshen up. Why don't you go right on upstairs?
Oh, thank you, Mrs. McAfee. You're really very kind.
Nonsense. We're thrilled to have you stay with us. Mi casa es your casa.
See?
Mrs. McAfee, if my mother should happen to call, would you let me know?
Oh, is she here too? We'd love to have her stay with us. We have loads of room.
Well, I doubt she'll be coming. She's not in the best of health.
Take them upstairs, Harry. Mr. Peterson will be staying in the spare room, and Miss Alvarez will be rooming in with Kim. Isn't that cute? And Conrad Birdie is staying in our room.
Where are we staying?
With Randolph.
Isn't that cute? Doris, where's my paper? Didn't they deliver it this morning?
I gave it to Mr. Peterson, dear. He was anxious to read about Conrad. Mother, Daddy, could you please keep your voices down? Conrad might still be sleeping.
Yes, I'm sure he's very tired from moving his hips.
Daddy, could you please hurry? I really want to have this mess cleared away before Conrad comes down.
This mess, Kim, happens to be my breakfast, and I intend to enjoy it.
Mother. Now, Kim, dear, your father has a perfect right to enjoy his breakfast. But I'm sure he won't mind if we just quietly start clearing some of these other things away. I know it's been a hectic morning, dear, but Kim's gone to an awful lot of trouble to make a special breakfast for Mr. Birdie. And I want to make sure everything's ready and waiting for him when he comes downstairs. After all, he is a national figure, and I want to show these New York people we know how to treat a national figure here in Sweet Apple. Not that it matters all that much to me personally, but for Kim's sake. There, all done. Did you enjoy it, dear? Good. Now, if you'll just hurry along, I'll clear away these other things.
Doris, I am not budging from this table till I've had my coffee and read my newspaper.
I'm sorry, dear. We only have enough coffee left for our guest. How about a nice warm root beer? Morning, Pa.
Absolutely love it. And here, of course, are PETE and Keeley. You saw the interview that I did the other night with George. Yes. On my birthday, 20 years ago, I saw you do this role. It was such a fun evening. Phyllis Diller was the guest that evening. What is it about this show? You and George have such a chemistry, and it's like art is imitating life, or life is imitating art. And here you are, 20 years later, doing it again in what I think is the right medium for you to be doing this in.
The first time that we sat in a room together and sang, it was like we both went like that. It was like, it was, and honestly, that show is so dear to my heart because it was really created around everything that I have to bring to the party. It's like the way that, Jim Heinman had already written the script, but, Patrick Brady came aboard and started doing these arrangements. And, Patrick was my musical director for 20 odd years and one of my closest friends. He was best man at our wedding. And so he knows, and he's the one person who took me by the hand and said, here, I'm going to walk you through all the landmines, because I was very green when I got here and I kept getting these great jobs. And he was like, okay. And so he was so wonderful. And so that show was really built around our strengths, and I will say that I think I did pretty good with it, but I cannot say enough about George, because George was not a natural swinger. He was not naturally that style, right? He had to learn how to do all that stuff, and he was brilliant. And so it was like we were just this team, and I adore him because he's kind and he's funny and he's a big goof. And I just, he's one of my heart people. And whenever there's an opportunity to sing with him, I take it. And, we worked on it for such a long time. I know he told you this. And there is this shorthand and this chemistry that you can't create in 5 minutes. It's like, so we wanted to come back and explore it a few years ago when we did this thing at Birdland, because we did one concert and and Mark got up and talked, and there were posters, and we told stories and stuff, and we did a concert version of it, and then we decided we would just do the return of PETE and Keeley, and so we did a run at Birdland that was completely sold out, and thanks mostly to Stephen Mosher's rave review in Broadway World.
Oh, he's the best.
He's the best, and it was like a rock concert. It was so much fun, and we really, because the show was great, the original show was great. But when you take a second look at a show, you can tighten it always.
Well, I want to ask you, how much of Keeley is in Sally and how much of Sally is in Keeley?
Well, I think Keeley has a crazy about her that I hope I don't have. You'd have to ask my friends. I think that I also think that she has an ambition that I used to have, but I don't really, I've kind of lost the ambition. I still love to do the work, but I'm very picky about what I want to do and what I choose to work on. And because honestly, I have kind of an idyllic life now. I have a wonderful husband and a dog and a son that I'm crazy about, and I live in this beautiful community. And so if I'm going to work, I want it to be something that I really want to do, and that's with cabaret or with theater, which I've kind of gone back and forth between those two my whole career. And so,
that brings me up to my next question. This is Cabaret Month, and you started out doing a lot of cabaret work, and you keep going back to it. What is it about the genre of cabaret that resonates so much with you personally?
Well, when you do a book show, you are hired to serve the vision of the director and the vision of the writers and the producers. You're hired to do what they want to present. And when you do a cabaret show, you are doing what you want to do. And you have control of the material, and you have control of the pattern, you have control of how it lays out. And I've always liked that, because it's hard to give away all of your control of your thinking smart actor, because sometimes you don't agree, but that's not what your job is. And so it's nice to be able to do that. And also, I've always found it to be, if I had something that I wanted to say or something that I wanted to explore, when Patrick and I did the story hour, I really wanted to do an evening of story songs that were not necessarily theater songs. And we butted heads about it for a while, and because he wanted to do all these theater songs, I said, no, that's not what this is. This is taking other songs and putting them into that world, like Bruce Springsteen, and we did Meeting Across the River in that album. And it's like, it's a story, and it's a very theatrical piece, the way that we did it. And so it's like, when you have something to say and you want so badly to say it, then that's a reason to do it. I don't do it very often anymore. I stopped. When Patrick left the business, he left the business and he moved, I believe, to Tennessee, and then he started teaching at Shenandoah College. Lucky kids. But when he left the business, I just was bereft, and I thought, I don't know if I'll ever want to do a new cabaret act again, because I was his muse and he was mine. And Tex kind of gently, every year when we would work together teaching at Yale, he kind of gently brought me back, and he just kind of seamlessly moved into that position. And also, but I still wasn't doing new shows. I was just going and doing concerts of all my greatest arrangements and stuff, right? And then Jeff Harner and Alex Rybeck said, oh, no, honey. And they took me by the hand, and we decided we would do a show, because we'd done all these benefits together and we kept learning duets. And we decided that we should do a duet show. And so we started working on it, and we realized that we're not going to do those songs. We're going to do these songs. And so we did a completely different show.
It was a brilliant show. I loved it.
Oh my God. And so they brought me back to doing something new, and I had such a great time, and it's such a good show, I think. And Jeff and I are such a good pairing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I can't believe this, Sally, but we are at the end of our show. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I mean, there's so much more. I hope that you'll come back for a part 2 someday, because I just love you so much. I'm a huge fan. I have had the pleasure of seeing you so many times on stage, and I always leave with this great feeling inside. I want to say a few things before I'm going to give you a final word, and then I've got one other clip that I think is apropos for today. You'll be surprised. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I hope you had a great time. And whatever platform you're listening to or watching this on, please leave a comment, leave a rating, and share this with your friends, because by doing so, that increases the ranking with this particular show and we'll get more eyes on it. I want to let everyone know that tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be celebrating Broadway producer Margot Astrakhan. Have you two worked together ever, Sally?
I don't believe so, no.
Great producer, great friend. I'm looking forward to that. I also tell everyone at the end of each show to go out and do something nice for somebody else without doing anything in return, without expecting anything in return. This is what I would like you all to do today. Go to the Paper Mill Playhouse website and order 2 tickets for this show. Keep one for yourself. PETE N KEELY, you're going to love it, starring Sally Mays and George Dvorsky, and give one to a dear friend, and they will thank you for this. And not only will you be giving them the gift of Sally Mays and George Dvorsky and PETE N KEELY, you will also be sharing the rest of the season for the Paper Mill Playhouse, one of my favorite theaters, and we have to keep the music flowing, even through this genre right now. Now, I'm going to be rushing off in a few minutes to get my first vaccine, so that's where I'm headed after this. But before we go, Sally, I'm going to give you the final word before we have this other clip. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone who's watching now. And thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world. You're the best.
Thank you. I guess I want to say, don't let hang on. We're coming back. It's going to be okay. I love you. I hope I get to sing for you again sometime. I hope I get to hug you again. And I have so much gratitude for all the gifts that I've been given, and I love you all.
Thank you. I love you, Sally. She's still here, folks.
Let's make it real soft and put some sex on it, boys. Good times, bum times, I've seen them all, and my dear, I'm still here. Plush velvet sometimes, sometimes just pretzels and beer, but I'm here. I've stuffed the dailies in my shoes, strummed ukuleles, sung the blues, seen all my dreams disappear, but I'm here. I've slept in shanties, guest of the WPA, and I'm here. Danced in my scanties, $3 a night was the pay, and I'm here. I've stood on red lines with the best, watched while the headlines did the rest. In the depression was I depressed, nowhere near. I met a big financier, and I'm here. I've been through Gandhi, Windsor, and Wally's affair, and I'm here. Amos and Andy, Mahjong and platinum hair, and I'm here. I got through AB's Irish Rose, 5D on babies, major bows, had heebie-jeebies and BBs back the speed. I got through Shirley Temple, and I'm here. I've gotten through Beverly Hills, and I'm here. Reapers and vino, rest cures, religion and pills, but I'm here. Been called a pinko curry tool, and got through it stinko by my fool. I should have gone to an acting school, that seems clear. Still someone said, she's sincere, so I'm here. Black sable one day, next day it goes into hot, and I'm here. Top billing one day, Tuesday you're touring in stock, and I'm here. First you're another slow-eyed vamp, then someone's mother, then your camp, then you career from career to career. I'm almost through my memoirs, and I'm here. I've gotten through, hey, Lady Orange Juice. It's wow, what a looker you were. Or better yet, sorry, I thought you was. It's whatever happened to her. Good times, dumb times, I've seen them all in my day. I'm still here. Lush velvet sometimes, sometimes just pretzels and beer. And I'm here. I run the gamut A to Z. 3 cheers and damn it, c'est la vie. I got through all of last year. And I'm here. Lord knows at least I was there. And I'm here. Little cozy. I'm still here.